See, I would like to know that he's behind bars like for a long time. I think it would make a lot of us young women feel safe at home knowing that he's not out and about, like can go into our homes.
I would like something big for it to happen to him. I think it will set an example. It'll definitely put a stamp on what we expect here in this community.
There's something mentally wrong with him, and my personal feeling would be that he would have become a serial killer if he could have, because his crimes kept getting progressively worse.
Welcome to the channel. But before we dive in, guys, if you enjoy this video, please hit that subscribe button and give it a like. Also, drop a comment below telling me which city you're watching from and what time it is there. I love seeing where my audience is tuning in from. All right, now let's get started. Today's story takes us back to 2008 to Reno, Nevada. For 19-year-old Brianna Dennison, Reno wasn't just a place to live. It was the center of her world, her safe haven. Brianna's dad passed away suddenly when she was only 6, leaving a hole that nothing could ever fill. That loss was the first big shock of her childhood, and even though it was devastating, her mum, Bridget, always stressed that it brought them even closer together. She often said, "We had to stick together." She got really protective of me, and for good reason, because I was all she had left. Those words weren't just about the strong love between them, they also showed the deep bond, the mutual reliance, and the sense of security Brianna always found by her mum's side. Brianna's connection with her mum was truly one of a kind, strong and unbreakable, like this delicate but unshakable thread keeping them together. One of her friends, Danielle, who had known Brianna since preschool, described their relationship as something really special. Mother and daughter weren't just family, they were best friends, sharing all their joys and struggles. Danielle remembered being constantly amazed by Brianna's kindness and sincerity. "She was the kindest person I've ever met," Danielle said. "She taught me so much about real kindness, about how important it is to care about others, and Brianna never skipped a birthday, not even for distant acquaintances, friends, or family members. She always made time to call, wish them personally, and share warm thoughts, even when it meant going out of her way. That was her way of showing people that they mattered, that they weren't forgotten." 2 years after graduating high school, Brianna decided to take a big step and start a new chapter by going to college. California called to her, the sunny, open, opportunity-filled California. It wasn't an easy decision for her mum, who was scared to let her daughter go so far away. But Bridget understood. It was time for Brianna to start this new chapter of her life. Brianna was loving her psychology classes at Santa Barbara City College. She dreamed of helping kids and was already thinking about a career where she could make a difference. She had a boyfriend, and her circle of friends kept her life fun and full of energy. Even being far from home, Brianna always stayed in touch with her mum, sending photos, texts, sharing all the cool stuff happening around her. But for her mum, it was still a little nerve-wracking and stressful. If she had a bad dream or something in her gut told her something might be off, she'd immediately grab the phone and call Brianna just to make sure she was okay, that she was safe. That constant worry was like this invisible weight she carried everywhere, never really giving her peace of mind. Winter break was coming up, which meant Brianna would be heading back to Reno, back to the warm, familiar vibe of home. That January, Brianna and her friends were totally excited for a packed weekend. Snowboarding all day on the snowy mountain slopes and hitting parties at night when the city lit up with music and lights. For Brianna, these were moments of freedom, joy, and youth, things she treasured and looked forward to every year. On Friday, January 18th, Brianna went over to her friend Katie's place. They'd been friends since school, always sticking together for the best moments in life. This time, they were more than ready for a fun weekend, 2 days to forget about school, work, and all the usual stress, just diving into a world of music, laughter, and friends. Katie lived in a big house near the University of Nevada, Reno campus, and that's where the group planned to spend the weekend, turning the house into the center of their little adventures. According to another friend, Jessica, Friday night was almost perfect. They danced late into the night, laughed, screamed along with the music, feeling the crowd's energy and the thrill of the evening. After dancing, everyone piled into Katie's bed together, talking about the night, reminiscing about earlier moments, and making plans to do it all again the next day. It felt like the whole world belonged just to them, light, easy, full of youth and freedom. On Saturday, January 19th, Brianna stopped by her mum's place to do some laundry before continuing the weekend fun. After that, they went to see the new movie, 27 Dresses. Brianna had always loved these moments with her mum, simple, everyday things, but full of this warm closeness that nothing could break. Later that day, there was a concert Brianna had been planning to go to, but she hesitated. She was feeling a little under the weather, caught a cold, and wasn't sure she'd be able to fully enjoy the night. Her mum noticed the doubt in her eyes, but Brianna was still determined not to let it ruin their plans. Her mum said, "You might be sick tomorrow, and you really love this band." By 9 that night, Brianna hugged her mum goodbye, leaving that warm trace of care and love. Later, she texted her mum to check if she wanted a message when Brianna got home. Her mum, finally calming down, told her not to worry. She knew Brianna would be at Katie's and felt a little reassured that her daughter was safe. After the concert, Brianna and Katie met up with Jessica, and the three friends headed out, hopping into a shuttle bus that was already waiting. They were dropped off near Sam's Regency Casino Hotel, where the next party was set to take place, a buzzing hotspot of nightlife, where they hoped to spend the rest of the night full of music and laughter. A few hours later, Jessica was ready to call it a night and head home. She approached a man she didn't know at all. He was just leaving his parking spot in an SUV and asked for a ride. He agreed. Jessica later remembered, "I probably could have walked, but it was freezing, and I just decided to get in. Someone happened to be leaving. Yeah, that was a bad idea." There's a subtle sense of unease in her words, a mix of regret and that premonition that the night could take a turn no one expected. Around 3:30 in the morning, Katie and Brianna got a ride from one of their friends to head back home after the long evening. Brianna was exhausted and didn't want to curl up with Katie in bed again, so she chose to sleep on the couch. The couch sat right by the sliding glass doors, which looked out onto the dark yard, lit only by moonlight. As it turned out, the glass doors were never locked, leaving the house open to anyone. People often called the house like a hotel. People came and went as they pleased, and that constant openness made the sense of safety feel fragile. Brianna and Katie said goodnight to each other around 4 in the morning, and it seemed like the night would end peacefully. At 4:23, Brianna sent a text to her boyfriend in Oregon, the last message she would send before the house fell into a silence so deep and heavy that it almost felt like it was carrying the weight of something unexpected. Katie and Jessica woke up around 9, stretching into their usual morning routine. Jessica remembered, "We went into the kitchen and started making breakfast. The kitchen was right in front of the couch, and Brianna wasn't there anymore." Katie pointed at the empty couch and asked, worried, "Where's Brianna?" At first, they thought maybe she'd gone upstairs to one of the empty rooms in the house. That seemed like a reasonable guess for a while and didn't raise too much concern. Katie carefully knocked on the bedroom where she thought Brianna was sleeping and called out that it was time to get up. At 9:45, she tried again, but still got nothing, just silence. Katie started pounding on the door, her heart racing with fear, but all she got was the quiet echo of empty rooms. That's when it hit her. Brianna wasn't in the house. "Desperate," Katie whispered. "Her phone's here, her shoes are here. I know she went to bed in a tank top. Her bag's here. Her whole life is here. So I can't figure out where she could have gone." It was winter in Reno. The cold cut through to your bones, the snow crunching underfoot, and the idea that Brianna had just wandered off on her own seemed almost impossible. Katie immediately called Brianna's mum as soon as she realised all of Brianna's things were still in place. While waiting for Bridget, her eyes happened to fall on the pillow she had given Brianna and her heart sank. There were 2 small spots of blood and a faint smear. It was a sign that something had gone terribly wrong. She called Bridget back right away, sobbing, barely able to speak. "There's blood on Brianna's pillow," she cried into the phone. "Should I call the police?" Feeling Katie's fear and panic in every word, Bridget said only one thing: "Yes, I'm coming as fast as I can." Very soon, Brianna's mum, her aunt, and the police arrived. The house was filled with quiet, tense activity. There were no signs of a struggle, but the blanket Brianna had gone to bed with was found tossed across the kitchen, disturbed and out of place, as if hinting that the night had not gone as planned. Another small but important detail, a brown plush teddy bear that Brianna used as an extra pillow, was missing. That little thing became a symbol of fear and horror for everyone involved, because suddenly it was clear something awful had happened to Brianna, and no one knew where she was or if she was safe.
She is one of the nicest girls, and if whoever did this is watching, she's so nice, just please. She wasn't there, and I noticed blood on the pillow, so we called the cops, and from there it's just been the nightmare.
Dennison goes to college in Santa Barbara, California, but she was in Reno visiting friends and family for the weekend. Brianna's friend says the front door was not locked that night. Her aunt says Brianna had also gotten a text message from her boyfriend that night.
Just awful. They were breaking up kind of stuff, and he just was saying awful things to her, calling her all kinds of names and stuff like that. He was just jealous and young.
Authorities say Brianna left behind her purse, cell phone, and some clothing. Dennison's family is not giving up hope, but said they are confused by the...
Lieutenant Robert McDonald, who led the Reno Police Detective Division, was supposed to have the day off, but a call from his colleagues changed everything. From the start, he said, it just didn't sound right. The local search and rescue team was quickly brought in, and officers began going door to door. The police interviewed everyone living in the area, but all were cleared as suspects. For the officers, the blood on the pillow was a huge red flag. Based on all the evidence, it was clear this wasn't a voluntary disappearance, this was a kidnapping. There were 3 blood spots, each ranging from about 1 to 3 inches, mixed with phlegm, saliva, and mucus. There were also traces of mascara. Tests confirmed the blood belonged to Brianna. In the affidavit, forensic experts noted that Brianna likely had an open, bleeding injury around her mouth, throat, or nose at the time her face had been pressed hard against the pillow. Because of where the blanket was found, DNA was collected from the back handle of the rear door. The results showed an unknown male profile. But the local sheriff's office already had a backlog of 3,000 untested DNA samples.
Appealing for money to help clear a crime lab backlog. They have almost 3,000 DNA samples to process. One could match Dennison's kidnapper.
This community has come together in so many ways to look for everyone's daughter. And I think the Brianna Dennison case has emerged as everyone's daughter.
For Brianna's family, hope remains for clues.
I'm confident in every lead, everything that comes our way every day, that it's going to be the key to.
Within just a few days, the community had raised $150,000 to speed up the processing of DNA samples, but none of them matched. The perpetrator's DNA was also run through the national database, still no hits. Suddenly, Bridget's house became a hub for people wanting to help. She knew she had to get as much attention on her daughter's case as possible, so she reached out to the media. Pretty soon, Brianna's disappearance was making headlines across the country. People started wearing blue ribbons, Brianna's favorite color.
Instead of advertising the performers, electronic billboards around Reno, Nevada now show the face of a missing college student. 19-year-old Brianna Dennison was last seen early Sunday morning. Friends are worried.
Every day we start out first thing in the day and we organize the media, we organize what we can do, what resources we have, we check in with the police.
Dennison's cousin spoke with her nearly every day.
We said, like, we love you. I said I love you, and she's like, I love you too, and we were gonna talk soon.
A makeshift memorial is growing where Dennison was last seen.
If Brianna's watching, I want her to know that I love her, that I miss her, and that we will.
Since the case was now officially considered a kidnapping, the FBI got involved, along with 2 specialists from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Police, working with K9 units, scoured the area, and a reward was announced for any information that could lead to finding Brianna. The police said they wanted to speak with the man who had given Jessica a ride home that night. Eventually, the man contacted authorities himself, and after questioning, he was cleared as a suspect. We haven't found any new leads, no items, nothing that could lead us to Brianna at this time, said Lieutenant Ron Holliday. All signs point to Brianna being kidnapped. We sincerely hope she might walk through the door at any moment, but the longer time goes on, the slimmer the chances become. Sergeant Gerald Rudis, head of the Regional Sex Offender Task Force, said his detectives were interviewing every registered sex offender living within a 1-mile radius of the house Brianna had stayed at that night. They also checked a nearby home. What the man living there told them was alarming. Between around 4:30 and 5 in the morning, he had been sitting in his living room with the lights off. At one point, he saw a shadow outside the window. Then someone tried to open the door. It looked like someone was pressing on the handle, pushing the door, he said. But he didn't get up to see who it was. I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was a drunk student looking for their place and had the wrong address. By Monday, the 21st, the police had deployed search dogs and helicopters. People poured into the area to help. Hundreds of volunteers combed the streets and snow-covered fields, looking for any tiny clue. They checked storm drains, lifted manhole covers, scanned rivers, ditches, and open fields, everything. It was becoming clear to the police that this offender had likely struck before. This was someone with a history, someone who had committed similar crimes. They believed he was the same man responsible for 2 sexual assaults that had happened on the campus. November 13th, 2007, a 21-year-old student was in a parking lot when an unknown man grabbed her from behind, threw her to the ground, and threatened her with a weapon before attacking. He told her not to scream, but she did. That scared him, and he ran off, accidentally dropping a pack of condoms as he fled. December 16th, 2007. Early in the morning, a 22-year-old exchange student was grabbed from behind right near her home. The attacker covered her nose and mouth, and she passed out while fighting for air. When she came to, she was in the bed of a pickup truck. The vehicle hadn't gone far, and inside, she was sexually assaulted. He told her not to look at him, and when he dropped her off, He ordered her out of the truck without turning around. She told police the attacker was a white man with some facial hair and tanned arms. She was also able to provide details about the truck. She remembered the radio, which had red and blue lights, and even noticed children's shoes on the floor. Police were also able to collect a DNA sample from him. Both of these victims, like the previous one, said he took their underwear. Later, investigators confirmed that the DNA from both earlier assaults matched the DNA found on the door handle at Brianna's house. This was a serial sexual predator, and his crimes were escalating in violence.
Police think she was abducted by a serial rapist linked to a string of attacks near the University of Nevada. The cases are all linked by DNA.
Police also believe that the break-in at the exchange student's house was done by the same man. The student woke up to someone trying to force their way in through the back door. The force used was so intense that the door bent outward. All of these attacks had happened within just 4 blocks. By now, everyone knew the description of the man they were looking for. A white male, between 28 and 40 years old, standing about 5 to 6 feet tall, driving an SUV or a long bed pickup. People were terrified, and gun sales shot up.
Evidence is linking the suspected abduction of a missing college student to 2 attacks on women near the University of Nevada, Reno last year. 19-year-old Brianna Dennison disappeared on January 20th from a friend's home. Police say that her case is linked to a sexual assault in December and an attack in November. Now, police have released this sketch of the suspect and a separate attack near the university back in October. Investigators believe that this person could be tied to the other.
Adding to the description, police said this was someone who blended in, quietly stalking his victims, but who escalated the level of violence with each attack. The police firmly believed there could be more victims, so they urged anyone with information to come forward. The search dragged on, and it was exhausting, but volunteers didn't give up. One of them said, "Every day we come back to the command center with heavy hearts, but we're ready to go back out the next morning and stay positive as long as it takes." One student mentioned that a lot of people were certain he would strike again. The hunt for him was unlike anything Reno had ever seen. Over 300 volunteers combed the Truckee River with Nevada's First Lady, Dawn Gibbons, who said no one would stop until Brianna was found and brought home. She added that her son went to school with Brianna. For many, this case became incredibly personal. Over 5,000 tips came in, and more than 700 men voluntarily gave DNA samples to investigators.
Back, it's been nearly now a month since California college student Brianna Dennison disappeared in Reno. And joining us now from Reno is Brianna Dennison's mother, Bridget, and Brianna's uncle, John Zanino. Bridget, let's start with you. Where is this investigation right now? Bridget, do you believe that the investigators have told you everything that they know? Are you comfortable with how this is all being investigated?
I'm extremely comfortable with how it's being investigated. I doubt that they've told me everything. I'm sure there's, plenty that they're looking into. I'd like to speak to my daughter's abductor that it's time to give her back. We miss her and we love her. We know she's hurt, and it's time to give her back to us.
February 15th, 2008, about 8 miles from where Brianna had been kidnapped, Alberto Jimenez was crossing a vacant lot at work, heading out for a snack, when something caught his eye, something strange in the bushes, down in a shallow ditch. It was a Christmas tree lying on its side, and then he saw some socks. As he got closer, he thought maybe it was a mannequin. I mean, how much worse could it be, right? But then he saw a wound on the shoulder, and he realized it wasn't a mannequin. He ran back to the office and told his manager. Together, they went back to the ditch and called 911. Soon, police were on the scene by a storm drain, about 40 feet from Sandhill Road.
It could be missing college student Brianna Dennison. This is the field where they found that body, and it was on the edge of the campus of the University of Nevada. That's less than 10 miles from the house where Dennison was last seen.
The next day, February 16th, a press conference was held. Deputy Chief Jim John said, "Today's autopsy confirmed that the remains of the woman found in the field belonged to Brianna Dennison. The official cause of death is asphyxiation. This was a sexual crime. Police now believed she had been strangled inside the house and then carried outside. She was completely undressed, except for a pair of socks, and under her right knee were 2 pairs of women's underwear, one pink, one black. Katie said the pink pair belonged to her and she didn't even know they had been taken. The owner of the second pair couldn't be identified. DNA was taken from Brianna's body, and it fully matched the DNA found on the door handle and from the previous assaults. The spot where her body was found quickly became a memorial. People left flowers, candles, and notes in her memory.
We just see her face and we see someone we love.
It's a small memorial to a young woman some say was like family.
I remember her mom saying she became America's daughter, and in reality she did. She's everyone's daughter. She's everyone's sister.
And now residents are left coping with the loss.
I cried. I sat in my living room. I was home by myself and just cried.
As some tried to bring closure to a case that's captured the hearts and minds of many.
On March 6th, police released new information. This killer had been keeping his victims' underwear as trophies and then leaving them at the crime scene like a twisted little calling card. Both pairs of underwear had been deliberately left there, almost like he wanted the police to find them. One officer said flat out that the murderer was just mocking them. The FBI and more than 40 detectives were working around the clock, putting in hundreds and hundreds of man-hours to track down her killer. Posters that had once gone up all over the neighborhood saying, "Bring Bree back," now read, "Bring Bree justice."
We've got to take on some urgent business in Reno, Nevada. Cops need your help to hunt down the killer of 19-year-old Brianna Dennison.
It seems as if everyone in Reno, Nevada is in a state of mourning.
It's just been unbelievable as how Reno has come together to help one family.
Thousands have turned out to pay tribute to this beautiful teenager whose life was taken too soon.
She was always an angel on earth that protected us. Now she's with her father watching over us.
There have been a series of vigils and memorials as people continued to struggle with their grief.
But weeks went by, Reno residents were still living in fear, and the killer seemed no closer to being caught. Thousands of tips poured in, but they only needed one, the right one. And finally, it came. On November 1st, police received a lead. A woman told a friend that she had found women's underwear in her ex-boyfriend's pickup, and his reaction to being asked about it was really strange. After Brianna's body was discovered, the ex suddenly moved out of town, even though he'd lived there since 2002. He also sold his truck. His record included animal abuse and domestic violence. He had broken a puppy's leg, tried to attack someone with a knife, and was abusive toward an ex-girlfriend. He'd been arrested for aggravated domestic violence, but no DNA was taken at the time. This was 27-year-old James Michael Biela. James worked in construction, had served in the Marines, and had martial arts training. He also knew the campus well. He had worked there on a construction contract the year before. Once they identified him, investigators decided to put him under surveillance. Strangely, during the first phone call, James didn't even ask what the investigation was about. The next day, he met with detectives and refused to voluntarily provide a DNA sample. He claimed that on the day Brianna went missing, he was with his girlfriend. Police spoke with the woman, and she said that was a lie. She allowed them to take a DNA sample from their shared son. Using that sample, investigators were able to confirm that the biological father, James Biela, was almost certainly the same person whose DNA had been found on the door handle at the house. On November 25th, while James went to pick up his son from daycare, he was arrested. After his arrest, he was required to give a DNA sample, and it matched.
Nevada police say they have arrested a suspect in the kidnapping and killing of a 19-year-old college student. Police issued a statement overnight announcing a news conference Wednesday morning on the arrest of a suspect in the slaying of Brianna Dennison. Investigators said DNA evidence gathered from the scene linked Dennison's killer to 3 other sexual assaults on women at or near the campus from October to December 2007.
They decided to formally charge him. He pleaded not guilty. The news was met with a quiet sense of relief. People felt like maybe, finally, justice was getting a step closer.
So, who is James Biela? We're learning a whole lot about the man charged with Brianna's murder. Brandon Rittiman talked with Biela's father today and with his neighbors. Brandon, give us an idea of James Biela's background.
Well, Wendy, neighbors say they rarely, if ever, saw Biela, and it's really the same story from his father, who says it's been a year or so since he saw his son, Jimmy. Be warned, you may find some of the father's language offensive.
Joe Biela had a handful of family photos to share with us, and after learning of the arrest, he gets pretty heated when he sees his son, James.
Jimmy, that's the little asswipe that killed that girl. Too bad, but he did.
Joe suffers from mental and physical disabilities. Hurt describes how Joe Biela felt when he saw his son Jimmy's picture on TV, arrested for murdering Brianna Dennison. Biela says he and his son were not close. Joe knows that James was a plumber, but not much else about his son's life.
Is that his kid he's holding? Hell if I know.
Father and son are both ex-Marines. Joe has his honorable discharge on the wall, but says his son, seen here in uniform, was kicked out.
Yeah, for doing drugs. I do drugs too. You name it, I done it. but I don't get caught.
And one neighbor did notice Bila was away for a few months. That was during the time police say he was up in Washington State. The neighbor didn't think anything of it, thought Bila may have possibly been away for military duty. Covering the big story live in the newsroom, Brandon Ritterman.
During the preliminary hearing for the charges of murder, kidnapping, and sexual assault related to Brianna's case, as well as 2 other sexual assault cases, more than 10 witnesses took the stand. One of them was a forensic pathologist. Dr. Ellen Clark, the county medical examiner, testified that the marks on Brianna's neck matched one of the 2 pairs of women's underwear found near her body, and that they could have been used to strangle her. 2 other women who had been attacked also testified. One of them said she had been attacked in a parking lot near the campus, right by the university police station. She identified her attacker as James Bila. Another woman said she hadn't seen his face, but she was able to describe his truck. Grey fibres found on her clothing matched fibres from the interior of his vehicle. James was held without bail. The district attorney stated that no decision had yet been made on whether they would seek the death penalty. At first, James wanted to testify himself, but after speaking with his lawyers, he changed his mind. His defense argued that the prosecution was overlooking significant differences between the 3 attacks, which could suggest that the crimes might have been committed by different people.
But first, let's go out to the courthouse for the latest from the trial. Brandon, what did we learn about the 2 rapes Bila is accused of being part of?
Well, first and foremost, we got some information on how police linked Mr. Bila to the December 2007 rape. And we show you some pictures here from court earlier. Bila, watching as the chief investigator, testified about flying to Taiwan to interview the 22-year-old victim of that December rape, who testified yesterday.
She felt a moral obligation to cooperate in the hopes that this person could be caught and not hurt anyone else.
Detective Jenkins is talking about the rape victim who was the first person to testify in this case. Because she's the victim of an alleged rape, we've concealed her identity. There is another rape prosecutors charged Bila with committing. We have not yet heard from that victim, though the detective did describe her as much more reluctant.
When photos of her body were shown in court, Dr. Ellen Clark said she couldn't determine exactly how long Brianna had been dead or how long her body had been left there.
Prosecutors called Bila's former supervisor, John Latham. Latham said on February 15, 2008, after Brianna Dennison's body was found that same morning, Bila quit his job, took his last paycheck, and moved to Washington State. Also that same day, Latham talked with Bila about the discovery of the body.
I asked him how he felt about her being found, and his comment was that she...
And I know there was some colorful language. Say exactly what he said.
The bitch probably had it coming.
Then he says Bila cracked a smile. The defense asked Latham whether he reported it to police.
No, I did not. He always had that sense of humor, and a lot of guys have that kind of humor.
And we've heard testimony that the defendant kind of fancied himself a bit of a comedian. He was a funny guy. So the bitch probably had it coming might be a very poor attempt at humor from anybody other than the person who strangled the life out of Brianna Dennison. You could probably apply that to all 3 victims in this case. He probably figures that all 3 of them had it coming.
The grueling 3-week trial was finally coming to an end. After 6 hours of deliberation, the jury reached a verdict.
And again, a jury of 7 women and 5 men. They've selected a foreman to hand down the verdict. It took them more than 6 hours. Apparently they are walking in right now, and then we should hear the verdicts momentarily.
We, the jury, in the above entitled matter, find the defendant, James Michael Bila, guilty of count 1, sexual assault. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter, find the defendant, James Michael Bila, guilty of count 2, kidnapping in the first degree. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter, find the defendant, James Michael Bila, guilty of count 3, sexual assault. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter, find the defendant, James Michael Bila, guilty of count 4, murder in the first degree of Brianna Dennison. We, the jury, in the above entitled matter, find the defendant, James Michael Bila, guilty of count 5, sexual assault on Brianna.
The next phase was the jury's decision on sentencing, life in prison, or the death penalty. During this stage, Biela's siblings testified that they had grown up in an extremely violent and abusive household, where their father terrorized the family. His defense attorneys argued for life without parole, emphasizing his traumatic childhood and the fact that he had no prior criminal record. But it wasn't enough to sway the jury. James Bila was sentenced to death. It was a just verdict. The district attorney said, Cases like this always reinforce my faith and trust in the jury system. On the 18th of August 2010, the judge signed the order to carry out Biela's death sentence. The ruling was automatically subject to appeal in the Nevada Supreme Court. For Bridget, it was a true victory. When James Michael Biela went after my little daughter, he chose the wrong family, the wrong woman, the wrong city, and the wrong state, she said. But Biela still had to answer for his other attacks. 2 months after the death sentence, Judge Robert Perry sentenced him to life with the possibility of parole for 3 sexual assaults and 1 kidnapping. The judge noted that while Biela had already received the death penalty, this sentence was necessary for the living victims. Prosecutor Elliot Sattler explained that it served as a safeguard. If the death sentence were overturned on appeal, Biela would still serve at least 36 years for these crimes. Biela's first victim, who was pregnant at the time of her attack, spoke at the hearing. She said that while her life was now joyful, that joy had been overshadowed by the violence he inflicted. Another woman who had been attacked at gunpoint in November said, "Mr. Biela, I wish you could look at me now. You refused. Even though you didn't kill me, you killed the trusting, happy person I was just moments before you turned my world upside down." Brianna's family attended the hearing to support the woman who had survived. Even the jurors from Brianna's trial came, though they weren't required to. Being part of such a significant and important case, we felt we needed to see it through to the end, one of them said. In 2016, James Biela was back in court. His attorneys claimed he had an incompetent defense lawyer during his trial. The Nevada Supreme Court denied their appeal in April, which saw a new sentencing phase. Biela's lawyer argued that his original attorney should have objected to improper evidence about his past. If the jury hadn't heard details about his animal cruelty and domestic violence, they might not have sentenced him to death. The judges, however, concluded that even if objections had been made, the outcome wouldn't have changed. There is no reasonable probability that the result of the sentencing phase would have been different if the judge had excluded this evidence. The jury had been presented with a defendant who had led a violent life, escalating to murder. Turning tragedy into action, Bridget Dennison began campaigning for Katie's Law, which allows police to collect DNA from anyone arrested for a felony and compare it against unsolved crimes. "I truly believe this law will save lives," she said. "My daughter might be alive today if it had existed." In May 2013, Katie's Law was signed. Now, anyone arrested for a felony in Nevada must provide a DNA sample and pay for its processing. But another tragedy struck the Dennison family. Exactly 10 years after Brianna's abduction, her 9-year-old cousin Caitlin went missing. She had told her family she was flying to Midland, Texas, with a man she had recently met. Caitlin's sister Rachel said, "This isn't like her. We would never go so long without contact. That's when I realized something was wrong." She added that during their last conversation, Caitlin had said the man had made her fear for her life. According to news reports, Caitlin is described as a woman 5'0" tall, weighing 119 pounds, with blue eyes and light-coloured hair. She has a tattoo on her left finger joint with the word alien and the letter M, a tattoo of Libra scales on her right forearm, and scars on her arms and legs. 7 years later, Caitlin Dennison is still missing. If you have any information regarding her case or whereabouts, please contact the DPS at 512-424-5074 or 1-800-346-3243. Brianna Dennison was a vibrant, happy young woman, just 19 years old. She was full of promise, looking forward to the future, but one night, it was all taken from her. Yet out of this unimaginable loss came something powerful. This case changed the law, and the city of Reno came together. Strangers became search teams, neighbors became advocates, and the community rallied around Brianna's family, showing steadfast and unwavering support. It is that strength, unity, and pursuit of justice that endures today. And when we remember Brianna Dennison, it should not be for the cruelty that occurred, but for the light she brought into the world. On behalf of the family, Bridget said, "On the 29th of March 1988, Jeffrey and I were blessed with an incredible gift, our daughter Brianna. On the 20th of January 2008, she became a daughter to our entire community. We want to express our gratitude for the gift of Brianna in our lives, for the joy she brought, and for the precious memories that comfort us. Memories that give us the strength to look beyond our grief and continue, despite the sadness. Please do not forget Brianna." We are deeply grateful to all our viewers and everyone who has supported us. Thank you to everyone who watched this video. I hope you found it meaningful. If you'd like to support my channel and help me continue creating content, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. It truly makes a difference, and I sincerely appreciate it.